back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 403, Saved by the Beldam. The episode begins with it being the same day from the end of last episode, so there was only one day until the long-awaited Evergrande Conference that Ash was extremely excited for. Though not wanting all the other competitors to get ahead of him, Ash knew that he should probably spend this last day before the league training with his Pokemon, so he sent all of them out and declared that this was his fourth official tournament coming up. Well, fourth official league tournament anyways, because, the World Cup was just, and he wanted to actually win this one, much like he had won the Orange League. Brock, May, and Max didn't hear this part, as they were too busy getting ready to sit on a rock to watch Ash train, as Ash sent out his Pikachu, Corphish, Swellow, Torkoal, Grovyle, and Glalie to train on a beach in the stadium complex, doing stretching with all of his Pokemon first, and giving them instructions on how to do so, while Max and Brock watched intently, though May wasn't watching that closely, since she was more interested in seeing the sights, such as the restaurants and shops in the complex, and just all around Evergrande City in general, because she wanted to take in as much as she could regarding the city, especially all of its great food, because she was starving, as usual, and she proceeded to not even watch Ash at this point, just look through her guidebook of Evergrande, or the pamphlet that she picked up last episode. Ash then questioned if Morrison had arrived yet while he was training, but Brock stated that he had went to the Pokemon Center to check a few minutes ago, and Morrison had not registered yet, leading Ash to get worried that Morrison had actually been able to win his 8th badge. But nonetheless, he goes back to training, although Brock suggests that maybe they should go check the Pokemon Center again to see if he showed up, but Ash was already committed to his training, because he knew that the preliminary rounds would take place tomorrow, and he had to be fucking ready for that. Specifically, he was going to stop stretching and practice what truly mattered, his attacks. So, he had his Grovyle use a quick attack along the beach, while using this quick attack to dodge Pikachu's Thunderbolts and Glalie Ice Beams. We then see none other than Morrison chasing after a rice ball that he had dropped that was rolling away. Unfortunately, because Morrison was so busy chasing after his rice ball, he failed to notice Glalie's Ice Beam accidentally coming straight towards him. So, he wasn't able to dodge as the Ice Beam hit him hard and froze him into a block of ice, also throwing him into a nearby pool of water. Ash, Brock, Glalie, and Pikachu were alerted by the big splash, so they quickly ran over to the pool and saw that Morrison was frozen in the block of ice, which had somehow floated up to the surface, and it looked like Morrison wasn't badly hurt, and he was able to very quickly get out of the water with Brock and Ash's help, and then unthaw himself. After Morrison had recovered fully from this traumatic ideal, he greeted Ash and revealed that he had won his final gym badge. So now he could participate in the Hone League, even though Ash and the gang didn't recognize this badge, since it must have been from a different gym. Apparently there were fucking different gyms in Hone, I guess. They still congratulated Morrison on making it into the league. Glalie felt a bit sorry for freezing Morrison, and he felt a bit left out, not being able to introduce himself, so he popped up behind Ash's head to say hello, and although this startled Morrison at first, he instantly recognized Glalie as the Snorunt that he had met the first time he and Ash met, recalling that he and Ash met 2 months ago already, and he congratulates Ash on the evolution. Just then, though, as Morrison looks around, he notices the rest of Ash's team. He'd only seen Glalie and Pikachu before, so he was very surprised and amazed, remarking how cool all of Ash's different Pokemon were, as Ash went into detail about the training he was doing with them. Morrison didn't want to be left out, having Ash just talk about his team all day, even though he did think they were cool, stating that he was now going to send out his own team of Pokemon to compare them to Ash's, since Ash had only seen his Beldam and nothing else. So he sent out his whole team, which consisted of Beldam, obviously, along with a Growlithe, Gligar, Swampert, Steelix, Girafarig, and Ash and Brock both complimented all of Morrison's Pokemon. Morrison let the compliment go to his head a little bit, though, as he declared that he was going to win no matter what, leading Ash to declare the same thing, and they eventually got into that same rival argument thing that they got into when they first met, where they both declared that they were better, and eventually, as the argument got more and more intense, Ash suggested that they burn off their excitement to argue and compete against each other by racing. Obviously, Morrison was more than eager to try and settle a bit of their rivalry by racing, so they ran off together as fast as possible into a nearby forest, leaving Brock, May, Max, and both of their Pokemon teams in the dust, who all looked on confused. Eventually, as Ash and Morrison were racing against each other, and they were both trying to gain headway on each other, they fell into a pitfall trap, since they were too focused on one-upping each other, not looking around at their surroundings. Of course, Ash had suspicions of who dug this pitfall trap, though he couldn't know for sure, and had to wonder what was going on, along with Morrison, when suddenly Team Rocket revealed themselves, standing over the hole as they did their motto, with Wobbuffet and Chimecho joining in. Once Team Rocket was done with their motto, Morrison and Ash both yelled angrily at Team Rocket, demanding them to free them from the hole, but Jesse and James and Meowth just looked down, happily, taunting Ash and Morrison about how they had now captured them, and they were going to take all their Pokemon, which just angered Ash and Morrison even more. After Jesse and James had each done their respective taunts, along with Meowth, Meowth suggested that they now go and steal Ash and Morrison's Pokemon, unaware of the fact that Ash and Morrison knew that they didn't have their Pokemon with them, aside from Pikachu. So Jesse and James agreed, and cheered happily, thrusting their arms in the air, but before Team Rocket could do what they wanted to do, none other than Tyson, along with his Meowth, showed up to stop Team Rocket immediately, recognizing them from last episode. Tyson's Meowth then greeted Team Rocket by insulting them, which extremely angered Team Rocket's Meowth. And he was so annoyed by Tyson's Meowth that he didn't even get even more annoyed when Tyson insulted Team Rocket as well, because he was just so focused on his Meowth. Although Tyson making fun of Meowth and Team Rocket was a good thing, because Ash heard Tyson's voice and recognized it as his new rival from yesterday, and talked about him to Morrison from inside the hole, happily explaining to Morrison that Tyson must have come to save them, and adding that Tyson had helped him defeat Team Rocket earlier when they tried to take Pikachu, and he was also entering the Hoenn League. While all this was going on, Tyson's Meowth continued to throw little digs at Team Rocket's Meowth and just stand there nonchalantly, which got Meowth more and more angry as time went on, which just made Tyson's Meowth smirk, which in turn made Meowth even more angry, and it was just an endless cycle. Well, when Tyson's Meowth got more happy, Team Rocket's Meowth became more angry, even to the point where it seemed as though his blood was boiling and was going to burst. Eventually, Meowth gets to the point where he's so consumed by rage that he forgets all about taking action Morrison's Pokemon and goes to use a Furious Wipe, launching himself at Tyson's Meowth, who still just stood there calm. James and Jesse, observing their out-of-control teammate, screamed at Meowth to stop, reminding Meowth that they had to get Morrison and Ash's Pokemon, but their pleas were useless, as Meowth was too busy racing towards Tyson's Meowth in pure anger, although Tyson remained as calm as his Meowth, and simply told his Meowth to use Iron Tail on Team Rocket's. Sure enough, Tyson's Meowth prepares an Iron Tail, and once it had dodged Meowth's Furious Wipes, smashes it right into Team Rocket's Meowth, who was way less battle experienced than it, because Meowth wasn't used to battling by any means, and the power of this Iron Tail sent Meowth flying backwards straight into Team Rocket. And the impact of this was so huge that Team Rocket were all sent blasting off deep into the forest, kicking up a whole bunch of dust. So, with Team Rocket gone, Ash and Morrison were able to climb out of the pitfall without any issues, since Team Rocket couldn't stop them, and Ash happily greeted Tyson, leaving Tyson to ask Morrison and Ash if they were okay, with Ash confirming that they were, and Morrison thanking Tyson for helping them, followed by Ash thanking him as well. Suddenly, Brock runs up, completely breathless and extremely worried, leading Morrison and Ash and Tyson to ask Brock what was wrong, leading Brock to reveal that he had come to remind Morrison that it was time to register for the Hoenn League, and time was running out quick, and he had to do it before 5 o'clock, otherwise he wouldn't be able to participate. It was very close to 5 o'clock, so Morrison was extremely terrified that he might not be able to take part in the league after all his hard work of collecting badges, so he instantly ran off to register at the Pokemon Center, leaving a trail of dust behind him as Ash, Brock, and Tyson follow. Thankfully, Morrison, Tyson, Ash, and Brock managed to get to the Pokemon Center, also meeting up with May and Max, getting there at 4:50, and Morrison was able to register by 4:55, so he breathed a sigh of relief, and met back up with Ash and the gang, as well as Tyson and his Meowth, who all breathed a sigh of relief at the fact that Morrison had registered as well. Morrison then thanks Tyson and his Meowth once again for saving him from Team Rocket, so that he could register just in time, and Tyson said it was no problem once again. May was curious as to what Morrison was talking about, because, she wasn't around for the whole Team Rocket situation, so Morrison explained it to her, happily exclaiming that Tyson and his epic Meowth had saved him and Ash from Team Rocket after they fell in a pitfall trap. Tyson then noticed that his Meowth seemed a little agitated as it tipped its hat at everyone before storming off, going out of the Pokemon Center, so Tyson decided that it was best that he leave to make sure his Meowth was alright, admitting that it had been through a lot in its life, so he always felt the need to check on it. We'll get more details on that soon. Regardless, Tyson goes to leave the Pokemon Center, but before he leaves, Ash calls out to Tyson and expressed his wish to battle Tyson in the league. Tyson stated that would only happen if Ash and Morrison could make it past the preliminaries and wished them luck, telling them to do their best. Ash promised that he would do his best, and with that, Tyson left. But not before Morrison declared that he would do his best to try and fight Tyson in the league as well, and Pikachu hopped off of Ash's shoulder to wave goodbye to Tyson, and mainly Tyson's Meowth, because, as you remember from last episode, Pikachu and Tyson's Meowth kind of got along. Morrison then realized that he had no clue what the fuck the preliminary rounds even were, so Max and May explained to Morrison what they were, being a set of one-on-one matches that were just meant to be short matches to kind of whittle down the competition so that not every battle was a super long one. Ash admittedly needed this refresher on the preliminaries as well, so May questioned if Morrison and Ash would really do good in the league if they didn't even know what the fuck preliminaries were, but Morrison and Ash were both confident that they could do well, even though Max, Brock, and May were all still skeptical. And the two rivals expressed their desire to win the league and beat each other once more. The next day, for real, it was finally time to get the Hoenn League underway. Like, goddamn, they do a lot of Team Rocket filler, but anyways, we're finally here. So, the crowd gathered in the stadium to watch hundreds upon hundreds of trainers throughout Hoenn who had collected 8 badges battle it out. While trainers were waiting for their opportunity to battle it out, they were taking the opportunity to get some extra last-minute training in, including some trainers with a Castform, an Elekid, a Kecleon, a Ninjask, a Shroomish, and a Dragonite, but that was just some of the hundreds of Pokemon. We then see some of the preliminary battles, including a Golduck versus a Venonat, a Machamp versus a Nidoking, a Grimer versus a Hitmonchan, and a Scyther versus a Magmar. The Magmar kicked the Scyther's ass, the Golduck kicked the Venonat's ass, and it was unclear who exactly won in the Machamp versus Nidoking fight, as well as the Grimer versus Hitmonchan fight. We see several hundred more trainers battle, including one with Clamperl, and all the other trainers that we saw training. While Tyson and his Meow were sitting outside the stadium on a bench, meditating silently, which was a way for both of them to become less agitated, especially his Meow, who really needed to become less agitated. A little while later, back in the stadium, we see none other than Morrison step up into the stadium, while Ash, Brock, Max, and May watched from the stands, with Ash and May both wishing Morrison good luck, as Morrison sent out his Beldum against a trainer named Jump and his Electabuzz. To start off the battle, Morrison ordered his Beldum to use Takedown, and Beldum immediately launched itself right at Electabuzz. But Jump and Electabuzz were not worried whatsoever, as Jump taunts Morrison and orders Electabuzz to use Protect to shield itself from Beldum's attack, doing so with its arms. And this Protect works very well, since the force of the takedown being blocked sends Beldum flying back and smashing onto the ground. Morrison begged his Beldum to get back up, while Ash and the gang watched from the stands, worried, but Ash managed to suppress his worries and expressed his confidence that Beldum would be able to pull through in order to motivate Morrison. Sure enough, Beldum was able to get back up, and Beldum went in for another takedown attack, but Jump simply taunted Morrison again by laughing the attack off as he told Electabuzz to protect for a second time, which had the same result as last time, with Beldum once again being sent flying back from the impact of takedown colliding with protect. Morrison panicked a little bit, seeing that Beldum's takedowns weren't doing any damage at all, while Jump decided to change his tactics to an offensive one, as opposed to a defensive one, having his Electabuzz jump up above Beldum and charge up a Thunder Punch before smashing it right down into it, even though Beldum was still recovering from the last attack. But right as it was able to get back up from that last attack, it was knocked down from the Thunder Punch. Morrison desperately called out to his Beldum, trying to get it to stand up, although it was difficult for it, because that Thunder Punch was a lot. Morrison was obviously worried by the condition of his Beldum, but Ash was worried as well, literally clenching his fists in frustration at the fact that Morrison and Beldum were not able to land a successful attack, and he got up from his seat, encouraging Beldum to get up. Thankfully, Beldum was able to, but unfortunately, Morrison couldn't really do any good strategies since Beldum could only use a takedown, so even though he didn't think it would work very well, he had no choice but to order another takedown. Of course, Jump and his Electabuzz did not seem worried whatsoever once more, and Jump just ordered his Electabuzz to use Protect again. Regardless of this Protect though, Beldum doesn't give in, charging with a takedown on Electabuzz with all its might, which actually manages to break through the Protect a little bit and damage Electabuzz a little bit, making Jump actually go in for another offensive attack, being a quick attack. And this quick attack was so strong, it was able to send Beldum right into the stadium wall. Since Beldum was far enough away from Electabuzz though, Morrison actually saw Beldum being pushed against the wall as an opportunity for it to use Takedown again, and this time the Takedown actually manages to push Electabuzz back a little bit, since Electabuzz wasn't able to get up its Protect in time. Jump still didn't seem worried though, as he simply ordered his Electabuzz to use a Thunderbolt attack to basically render the takedown useless before it could do more damage, as the Thunderbolt smashed Beldum right onto the ground yet again. Actually doing even more damage because of how fast Beldum was going, so it wasn't able to use any of its energy to try and protect itself. Morrison urged his Beldum to get up once again, but it looked like this was it for Beldum, as it was really struggling to get back up. So Jump was convinced of his victory and ordered Electabuzz to use a Thunder Punch. However, before Electabuzz could land a blow, it seemed as though Jump had misjudged Beldum. It actually wasn't fully down, and because of Morrison's words of encouragement urging it to get up, Beldum was able to get back up, and also channel its energy starting to glow as it beautifully evolved into Beldum's middle stage form, Metang. Ash and the gang knew an evolution was occurring the second they saw Beldum start glowing and growing bigger, and they were amazed to see Metang, as well as the energy from the evolution being enough to knock Electabuzz back. And Ash and the gang, as well as Morrison, looked on in amazement at the beautiful Metang, with Morrison looking on in surprise, as he totally didn't expect his Beldum to evolve. As Metang proudly examined its own new body, Ash took the opportunity to scan Metang with his Pokedex, since this was the first time he had seen one, while Morrison just stood there, still amazed at what just happened, but then he realized he was still in the middle of a battle, and Metang had evolved from Beldum just to help him win the battle. So Morrison didn't want this evolution to go to waste, so he ordered his Metang to finish things off, realizing that now that Beldum had evolved into Metang, it could probably use more than one attack. But as he thought of what attack to use, Jump, who was also surprised about the evolution, snapped out of his surprise and ordered Electabuzz to get back up and use another Thunder Punch. And Electabuzz did so, jumping towards Metang, attempting to finish it off, but Morrison came up with an attack just then to counter the Thunder Punch, being a Confusion, which just in time was able to stop the Thunder Punch by freezing Electabuzz in midair as it was lunging towards Metang. And from there, Morrison told Metang to use Takedown to deliver the final blow, which shocked Jump as he didn't know what to do, since Electabuzz couldn't really do jack shit. Anyways, Metang locked its arms into place and went towards Electabuzz at an immensely fast pace, knocking Electabuzz out, after Metang had used the most powerful takedown it had ever used. With that, the referee of the battle, the official league referee, one of them, officially declared that Electabuzz was unable for the battle, and Morrison and his Metang were the winners. Jump was dismayed and walked away, while Morrison was immensely happy, running up to Ash, who was sitting in the stands, to tell him that he did it, he passed his first preliminary battle, yay! And Ash congratulates Morrison. It was then announced that the next preliminary battle would be between Tyson and another trainer, so Morrison happily got in the stands to watch this upcoming battle with Ash and the gang. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, right outside the stadium, Team Rocket had been smiling evilly in some bushes, coming up with their next evil plan. What was this plan, you may ask? Well, just like they did at leagues prior to this one, they were going to sell a whole bunch of snacks as snack vendors to all the passerby who were coming to watch the battles, or any of the trainers who were participating in the battles. Jesse and James were very excited to do this again, while Meowth wasn't by any means, because he knew that they'd tried this many times before, and it didn't work, so he just didn't see the point. However, Meowth was more stressed out and sad about something else as well. Tyson's Meowth, and how he got his ass kicked by it. Meanwhile, back with Ash and the gang and Morrison, they actually found out that Tyson's battle would be in another stadium on the complex, so they had to quickly make their way over there right as the match was started. Thankfully, they didn't miss anything. Since the battle hadn't actually started yet, Ash called out to Tyson and wished him luck in his upcoming battle, as did May. Max, however, didn't, because he was too busy looking at Tyson's opponent's Pokemon, Persian, the evolved form of Tyson's Meowth. Yep, that's right. Meowth was forced to battle its evolved form, who was owned by Tyson's opponent named Vivica. Vivica then suggested that she and Tyson get the battle underway, but Tyson's Meowth was a little too busy to battle, as it was fucking angry as hell at the mere sight of Persian. Seeing this, Vivica's Persian says something to Tyson's Meowth, which pisses it off even more, almost to the point of pure rage, like how Team Rocket's Meowth was reacting to Tyson's Meowth. Max observed this and commented that this battle would certainly be interesting, since Persian and Tyson's Meowth were staring each other down, waiting for the battle to start. They were basically just staring at each other and to have like a staring contest, so that they could have a battle before the battle actually began. Although Tyson's Meowth was not ready to battle before because it was so angry, now it was ready to channel its anger and attack the Persian relentlessly. Ash and the gang and Morrison were all watching intently, waiting for the battle to begin, whereas Team Rocket was not interested in the battle at all, instead just selling some snacks to people in the crowd, including selling ice cream to some kids. Damn Team Rocket, you pedophiles. Anyways, Meowth was obviously bored while doing this, because he still didn't want to sell snacks, so he turned his attention to the battle instead, and it was then that he noticed that Tyson's Meowth was battling. Although, before Meowth could get a really good look, James got mad at Meowth and ordered him to focus on their snack selling work. Meowth was aggravated by this, but he tried to at least do both, do his begrudging work and watch the battle. Without further ado, the referee officially declared that it was time for the battle to begin, as Tyson's Meowth immediately ran towards Persian without waiting for an attack order. Ash and the gang, Morrison, as well as Meowth, who was trying to watch, were all shocked by this sudden action, as they didn't expect Tyson's Meowth to disobey, but Tyson remained calm and simply took advantage of his Meowth's eagerness to battle, ordering a slash attack, and Tyson's Meowth obliged as it jumped towards Persian with the slash, but unfortunately, the slash was dodged by Persian by doing an incredible jump. While her Persian was in the air after the jump, Vivica saw an opening for Persian to go in for an attack as well, telling it to use Fury Swipes as it landed. So, Persian obliges, jumping towards Meowth and hitting it with Fury Swipes several goddamn times. Tyson then orders his Meowth to use Double Team, so Meowth backflips to get away from the Fury Swipes onslaught and creates several identical copies of itself, which surround Persian. Persian was completely unfazed by this though, as Vivica just told Persian to use a Water Pulse to go all throughout the battlefield, destroying every single one of the Meowth copies and hitting the real Meowth, sending it flying back. Although Meowth thankfully managed to land on its feet. Ash and the gang and Morrison then shouted some encouragement to Tyson, telling him to give it his all, although Vivica figured that Meowth was weakened enough where she could finish it off with one more attack, so she told her Persian to use Shadow Ball, which smashed Meowth right into the stadium wall, shattering a part of it even. Meowth refused to give up though, as it got up from the rubble of the wall, and Tyson ordered it to use Iron Tail, and this Iron Tail was enough to send Persian spiraling backwards, leading Tyson to order a follow-up Thunderbolt attack, taking advantage of the fact that Persian was injured, so as to not give Persian a moment to recover, but unfortunately, Vivica countered by telling her Persian to use Dig, and Persian dug underground to avoid the attack. This didn't matter to Meowth though, as it merely just aimed its Thunderbolt at the hole that Persian had went underground through, and sure enough, the Thunderbolt went right through the hole, all the way through the ground, until it hit Persian, which ended up hitting Persian so hard that Persian was sent up through the ground, out of its hiding place, and in the open again, screaming as it was still being shocked by the Thunderbolt midair. The Thunderbolt eventually came to an end, and Persian was sent smashing into the ground and down for good, defeated. Vivica called out for her Persian to get back up, but it was useless, and the referee officially declared that Persian was unable to battle, and Tyson and Meowth were the winners. However, despite Persian being knocked out, since Tyson's Meowth had a deep hatred for the entire Persian species, Tyson's Meowth didn't want to end the battle there. It didn't want to stop until Persian was not just fainted, but fucking dead, and it extended its claws, getting ready to use countless more Fury Swipes and slashes on Persian, even though it was already down, and Tyson attempted to grab hold of his Meowth's hand to hold it back, telling it to chill out, but Tyson's Meowth refused to chill out, and quickly freed itself from Tyson's grip, breaking free from his hand, and jumped towards Persian, as the crowd was left startled and in fear by Meowth's anger, and they were also scared for what was going to happen to the knocked out Persian. But thankfully, before Tyson's Meowth could attack, Tyson recalled his Meowth back to his Pokeball. Obviously, Team Rocket's Meowth, the entire crowd, including Ash and the gang, and Morrison, were all immensely confused as to why Tyson's Meowth was behaving like this, as Tyson just stares sadly at the Pokeball, concerned for his Meowth. Tyson saw how confused Ash and the gang and Morrison looked, so now that his match was over, he went over to the stands and told them to meet him outside on a bench outside the stadium, so they did. And Tyson started to explain the story of how he first encountered his Meowth and why it hated Persian so much. Eager to hear the story, Ash and the gang and Morrison gathered around Tyson, while Tyson was still holding his Meowth's Pokeball. Team Rocket's Meowth was also eavesdropping on the conversation, having went outside and was hiding in some bushes, because he wanted to know the truth as well. Anyways, as Tyson explained his story, we saw a flashback of it. Basically, one day, he was traveling through a snow-covered forest, and it was snowing immensely hard when he happened to come across a pack of wild Meowth that was led by Persian. The snow was getting pretty bad, and Tyson just wanted to get back to his cabin in the woods, but he got intrigued when he saw that there was one of the Meowth battling the leader Persian, and the Meowth was losing very badly, getting scratched up and thrown around, while all the other Meowth just watched, doing absolutely nothing. The Persian then used a very bad Fury Swipes, knocking the battling Meowth away, and then he used a Shadow Ball to knock the Meowth backwards, right into a tree. The Meowth didn't want to give up, even though Persian was stronger than it, but it wouldn't have a chance to finish the battle with Persian, as Persian was unimpressed by the Meowth, so it left with the rest of the Meowth, basically telling its pack to leave this other Meowth be, because it wasn't worthy of being in their pack, because it was so goddamn weak. And now, Tyson's Meowth was left alone, with nowhere to go. Abandoned in the middle of the snowstorm, knocked out from the Shadow Ball. So, it was then that Tyson revealed himself, and went up to the injured Meowth, and took him in, taking him back to his cabin, where he nursed him back to health, by warming him up next to a fireplace in his cabin, and also bandaging up its damaged legs, as its legs had took the most damage. Soon enough, Meowth had healed up enough to become conscious, and once Meowth was conscious, Tyson decided to give it the pair of boots that it still wore today to take the strain off of walking, and he started training it to walk on its permanently damaged feet, because he realized that even though he bandaged up its legs, they were still going to be damaged, because it was basically just a lifelong injury, and he could only make the pain better with the help of the boots. Tyson's flashback then came to an end, as he stated his belief that the reason why Meowth was so angry around Persian was because he still wanted to prove that even if it wasn't a Persian, he could still beat one, and laughed softly, admitting that while he totally understood his Meowth's anger, it was a bit of a pain to hold it back sometimes. Ash and the gang and Morrison totally understood why Meowth hated Persian so much, knowing that it must have been really hard to take a beating the first time, and almost the second time, because Persian did quite a bit of damage to Tyson's Meowth. As for Team Rocket's Meowth, who was listening to Tyson's story from the bushes, he was touched by this, not able to resist crying at Tyson's story, due to his own hatred for Persians and experiences with them, especially Giovanni's Persian. Meowth's crying was cut off though, as Jesse and James had found Meowth and yelled at him for not working and ordered him to get back to work with them, and Meowth reluctantly obliged. A little later, Ash and the gang and Morrison and Tyson had returned to one of the stadiums in the Evergrande complex, since it was now time for Ash's first round preliminary battle. So, while Tyson, May, Max, Brock, and Morrison watched from the stands, Ash was introduced to his opponent, Gilbert, who sent out his Hitmonlee, leading Ash to send out his Pikachu. Seeing how Ash's opponent was a tough martial arts guy, Tyson, Brock, Max, May, and Morrison made sure to cheer Ash on as loud as they could, and the referee officially declared that it was time for the battle to begin, as Pikachu and Hitmonlee both ran towards each other, with Gilbert starting off the battle, having his Hitmonlee use a rolling kick, and Ash countering the rolling kick with an Iron Tail. So even when Hitmonlee jumped towards Pikachu and kicked as hard as it could, utilizing its extendable legs, Pikachu was able to dodge and simply just use Iron Tail to send Hitmonlee crashing down to the ground, leading Tyson to comment on Pikachu's incredible speed, as Gilbert then told Hitmonlee to use a high jump kick, after it had recovered from the previous attack. Hitmonlee uses a special type of high jump kick though, as it combines its attack with forward flips, essentially going for 3 jump kicks, because it would flip and then go for one, flip and then go for another, etc, etc. But Pikachu utilized its amazing speed, using a quick attack to dodge all 3 kicks from the high jump kick, and as a result, Hitmonlee ended up very close to the stadium wall, because it had been moving with every kick. Since Pikachu had led Hitmonlee to the wall though, Hitmonlee still saw a chance to attack just by thrusting forward, but Pikachu dodged once again at the last moment, moving out of the way, which forced Hitmonlee to hurt its knee when it hit the hard surface of the stadium wall. Hitmonlee keels over for a second, but it gets back up, and Pikachu lands back on the ground after jumping to dodge the previous attack. And the two Pokemon simply stare at each other, waiting for the other one to attack, as Brock, May, Max, Morrison, and Tyson saw that Hitmonlee was probably waiting for Pikachu to attack it, since its knee was too sore to do any attack on its own. With Brock commenting that since Hitmonlee's legs were its main source of attacking, they were also its weak spot, if it couldn't use them, because then it couldn't attack very well. Gilbert knew that Hitmonlee's legs were currently its weak spot, so he knew he would have to end the battle fast before Hitmonlee lost, even if it meant that Hitmonlee would have to strain its injured legs in order to pull off the win, because he figured it'd be worth it, since then Hitmonlee wouldn't get hurt all over, it would just hurt its leg. Yeah, I know, kind of flawed logic, but we can just say that Gilbert was kind of losing it because he was panicking. But anyways, as Ash orders Pikachu to use a quick attack on Hitmonlee, Gilbert tells Hitmonlee to use a Mega Kick. Hitmonlee obliges, smashing his foot hard into Pikachu, but he feels immense pain while doing so, which distracted him. So this gave Ash an idea, as he quickly told Pikachu to use Iron Tail, which hits Hitmonlee extremely hard, and it forces Hitmonlee to stop kicking, and it's knocked back as Pikachu falls back the other way from the impact of the attack. And the impact also created a dust cloud, but when the dust cloud had cleared, it was revealed that Pikachu had managed to make his way back up to Hitmonlee and strike Hitmonlee's head with his Iron Tail, using the Iron Tail as a cushion, essentially, to blow back the Mega Kick, which we already knew. And sure enough, this Iron Tail to the head was enough to knock out Hitmonlee, as it fell to the ground and didn't get back up, meaning that the referee officially declared that Ash and Pikachu were the winner. Ash then congratulated congratulates Pikachu on his win, and Pikachu happily jumps into Ash's arms as the two hug to celebrate the win. With that, it was now the end of the preliminary matchups, and the real tournament was soon to begin. And in honor of the real tournament beginning, it was time for the torch flame to actually be lit in the stadium torch, much like the Kanto and Johto League. And since Ash was the last person to win in the preliminary rounds, Mr. Goodshow selected Ash to do the honors of carrying the flame up to the stadium torch. Ash ran up to the stadium torch and did so. Following the lighting of the torch, there was now going to be a little mini celebration celebrating everyone that had moved on to the main league. And the start of the celebration was marked with balloons, which were activated from some confetti cannon things from the stadium, and they floated off into the distance, as we see that several people from around the world were watching the Holy League on television, including the Pallet Town residents, including Professor Oak, Ash's mom, and Tracy, along with Misty from Cerulean City in her gym, and Norman and Caroline from their gym in Petalburg as well.